Hey everyone, Yan Zhao, today with a review of Vestige. Alright, let me get something out of the way. This book was put out by Gat Hanzo and the War Campaign. So I know that there is some controversy with War Campaign. I really don't know. I don't really understand it. Just like I don't understand the War Campaign. For, I don't know, probably over a year, I thought Ro Kabir was War Campaign. I thought that's just what he was calling himself. It, like a year after I first saw him, I realized like, oh no, there's a lot of other people involved in this. Now, I have had some very nice interactions with people in the War Campaign. I talked to a few people. To my knowledge, I have not been in contact with any of the leadership, I guess you'd say. So if you don't like the War Campaign, maybe you want to go watch another video. I just had a nice one about Apocalypse War. Go check that out. If you're cool with it, whatever. I have no particular vested interest one way or the other. But I am going to review this book just based on its merits, like I always do. All right. So I was interested in this sort of around the time it was announced. The basic premise is ancient relics that have power, either a race or a quest to find those relics and do something with them. Sounds good to me. All right, so let's just take a quick opener in this book. So we have Gat Hanzo, creator, writer. Donel Delay, who has done quite a few CG books, I believe. And I think he also used to do stuff for Image. I'm not super familiar with the whole body of his work, but does a decent job here. Cover by Ethan and Kyle Ritter. Yeah, looks decent. And so we have some other positions, which is interesting. We have Steve Dye as editor, Betty Bright Eye logo design, okay, 3D Robin graphic design. I'm not quite sure what they like. Did they do the weapons on this page? I'm not quite sure what the 3D design in here was, but we start off with this gorgeous page. Donel Delay, I think he really outdoes himself with the look of England. You've got sort of late 1800s. The architecture in this book is quite good. When we get to the characters, I mean, I think that they are all competently drawn. He does have a certain style, so it's one of those things, if you're not into his style, I could see, maybe this wouldn't be for you, but just all the physical locations are great. So we start off with this guy, Charles Gemmell, and he's working on the dock. He's down on his luck. People are beating him up, stealing his money, and just as luck would have it, he runs into half-naked hot chick. Now, maybe this person has a name. I don't know. We'll get into why I may not know later on. But when Charles sees, the half-naked lady on the docks of London, as one does, he goes up and talks to her. And he's like, yeah, I'm going fishing. She's like, hey, go over there. And he goes fishing, and he finds this dagger. So this is our first introduction to the magical items in this world. And it turns out it's basically got Jack the Ripper in there. Then we fast forward a little bit. We're not really sure what half-naked lady's deal is. Good, bad, provocateur. There's part over here kind of implies she's like the Lady of the Lake from Arthurian legends. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So then there's a little bit of background on, the fact that there are a bunch of weapons. And we skip ahead and we get to the main character, Matilda Klein. And she's some kind of a relic hunter. We see her starting off in the Old West. Same time frame. She recovers a sword. And then she goes on and hits the home of her benefactor, who is sending people out on these missions. So she's all psyched because she gets to go to London because there's a particular problem. This is where she first runs into Charlie. She's trying to get that dagger back. And it's at this point, Charlie's shadow takes on the spirit of Jack the Ripper. And then Half-Naked Lady, who has now found some clothes, is still there. We still don't know what her deal is. So story-wise, I quite like Vestige. It's got an interesting topic. It's not about monsters. It's got some historical significance. It's got action that you need. Interesting characters. I like the art. So from that point of view, it's good. The thing that disappoints me the most about the story is just that I want more. It's like we get everything set up. After this book, I understand who are the players, what are the stakes, more or less, and what's going on. And it seems like this is the part, we finish maybe like Act 1, and we're ready for the Act 2 action, where things really get kicked off. Unfortunately, it looks like I have to wait till Vestige Part 2. Now, that's not a knock on Gat Hanzo. That's just, most of these books coming out, they're just about that long. They're just enough to get a good beginning of the story, and then we're going to have to wait till Part 2. It was a similar kind of review that a lot of people had for Cyberfrog. Great to pick us up, get us introduced, but then it ends. So hopefully, in about another year, we'll get Vestige Part 2, or maybe a little faster. All right, now, it's not to say this is a perfect book. It is an excellent first book from Gat Hanzo, but there's a couple of things that really bother me. One is the color. Okay, so we take a look at this page, which I really like this. This is a really strong introduction. But you see how it's got this yellow, somewhere between like a French's mustard and that fancy stone ground mustard that you only bought because you've been stuck at home for the last 2 months, and you figured, well, hell, I'm just going to learn how to cook fancy stuff. Yeah, it's somewhere in there. And it's a real design element, but it's not great. Now, it's hard to see on the phone, but when we look into these buildings, it's not black. It's not black ink, it's brown. Now, this is generally something I really hate about modern comics. In this, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, okay, well, it actually works out okay here. But what's going to happen is this ends up really flattening this image. And they continue the design motif. It kind of looks all right. It's like the end of a day. Maybe it's autumn. You get that nice yellow glow. But as we continue on, like, why is the inside of the bar this color? All right, and then you get stuff like this. Like, it's like, oof. We've got a little bit of a separation between him and the background, which is okay there, but he doesn't really look integrated into it. All of this is just, I don't know, it's just so yellow. I don't understand why. And it makes everything look very flat, and it's hard to tell one thing from another. And then there is, here we go. And then you have this page. This is just, this is painful to look at. I'm sorry. Donel Delay goes, and he draws some nice stuff. but then like you just lose all the detail with everything being yellow, and then they even feel a need to put like a little bit of blue around this guy. Oof. And like, look at this guy. Okay, it actually looks better on the phone than it does in person, but there's almost no separation between him and this rock, which would be middle ground, kind of foreground, but behind him, there's like no separation. Where does this thing end and this guy begin? I don't know. I can't tell. And same thing for Sun Wukong, coming out here, the Monkey King. Because everything is so yellowified, it's just hard to see. Then they've got this, I don't know, teal. It's weird. It's like a few years ago when all of those movies, everybody looked like an orange Oompa Loompa, and then the sky was like teal because they were contrasting colors, and supposedly it made the main characters pop more. In this case, it's sad to say, but the color really does a disservice to Donel's art. All right, and the second thing is, unfortunately, I'm going to have to call this person out again, the letterer, Somni. Now, I had some complaints in Cyberfrog Blood Honey, and the complaint was that the font he chose to use for Mother was completely illegible. I just could not read it half the time. So we have similar issues in this. Now, one thing I do like about Somni and the things that he's trying to do is he uses different fonts, sort of non-standard fonts, so that it's more of an emotive quality. So in addition to just the meaning of the text, you're also getting some emotion from reading it, which is great, and I love that. The problem is he does things like this. Like, can you guys read this? He puts red against black. Jesus, that's so hard to read. Just compare it to this one. I mean, there's a lot of this book that I skipped over, and I absolutely would have just ignored it all had I not been reviewing this book. So it's just weird. And then there's a couple other spots. Another thing about the color. Talking about blending it in the background. This panel, too, so we've got what could be kind of neat. The sky, we've got stripes, but then this boat, which should be colored something to make it stand out, the stripes in the sky match these horizontal lines on the boat. Now, why? Is this like a camouflage boat? Am I not supposed to see it? Am I only supposed to see this stuff? I mean, it's just kind of a weird aesthetic, which I'm kind of going to throw at the feet of the editor, although I don't know what kind of editor that guy is. I would guess not visual. See, now this looks really nice. This is like, all right, anyway. So going back to complaining about fonts. Some of his stuff looks great. Spaff. Then you got Foom, which, blends into the tower again. I can't really see it. And there's one. I gotta find it. Oh, here we go. Then there's this thing on the ground. Okay, you are next. The problem is these two words are completely mirrored. This one is mirrored. You is mirrored and upside down. Is Jack the Ripper dyslexic? I don't know. It's weird. But see, then you have Somni doing great stuff like this. So it's just completely, I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of coherence to the way the text is done. But at any rate, Vestige. I'm giving it a thumbs up. I'm definitely going to buy book 2. I don't know when it's going to be announced, but I have a feeling pretty soon. I like the story. I'm very interested to see where it goes. Great first effort. Hopefully, a little better art direction for the colors and the lettering next time. All right, so leave your comment down below. Let me know what you think. Vestige, gonna buy it? Not gonna buy it? You should buy it.